Welcome to episode 3, Views from a Business Leader. In this episode, we talk to Gemma Barton, who is the owner and founder of Awoken Development. Good morning, Gemma. Thanks for taking your time out of your diary to talk to us this morning. Firstly, if you just want to tell people your name and your company and what you do for a living.
Yeah, so my name's Gemma Barton and I run an organisation called Awoken Development, and we work with organisations, leaders and their teams, and look at how they can be effective using their people. And we're looking at taking sort of quite a strong developmental lens in terms of what inhibits teams, how they collaborate better, and what's going on the inside that people see on the outside in terms of how they experience working in an organisation, doing one-to-one coaching with leaders as well as team coaching, and running sort of team days and facilitating change, those sorts of areas.
Wow, okay, so you're really, I guess, in the, sort of the firing line at the moment in terms of helping and working with businesses getting used to this sort of new way of working. I guess what's it been like over the last sort of 3 weeks for you and the clients that you work with?
Initially, we experienced a contraction because a lot of people just went internally focused about, what do they need to do in the immediate sort of firefighting response, which you would expect under a period of considerable threat. And I think in the last week, 10 days, I've seen people sort of start to come out again, start to think. Obviously, organisations are having, to make some very, very difficult decisions. I've got a background in HR, so I've been sort of working with some clients around, how do they furlough their staff? How do they engage? What sort of different perspectives they need to take. And so I think once that initial shock happened, then I've sort of started to sort of see clients coming into me and talking about, actually how do they process that? How do they engage? How do they hold that space within their organisation, which for a lot of people is very, very challenging.
Yeah, and I think staff is probably a big topic for lots of people, the well-being, how they feel. I guess I was speaking to people yesterday about sort of trust and making, feeling that they are sort of being productive with their time.
Yeah.
Is that something that you've experienced with the people you're sort of the leaders you're working with?
Yeah, I mean, trust is a big thing. I was having a conversation yesterday, and some parts of it is you're either gaining trust or you're losing trust. There's no point that you can be stagnant in that. And people are meaning-making machines. So if you're not giving them the meaning and giving them the answers, then they're going to be creating stories. They're going to be looking at the little micro actions or the little comments, or did they put my name on that email where it'd be a genuine mistake, may infer to them that they're no longer in the business. So actually, the importance of communication, the importance of being open and telling people the truth, because we know when somebody's hiding something or not being straightforward with us, our body and we're programmed to sense that to keep ourselves safe. So yeah, really, really important in terms of how you're communicating and how you are enabling people to come together in this period, because I mean, many of us will be home working, that'll be a change in pattern, but there's still basic human needs that come into maintaining well-being for your staff that you need to be attending to in sort of how you set up your virtual working and how you support it, and the risks that you would see in a team and team dynamics grow in this medium exponentially. So it's really important that you're taking appropriate action and reflecting and doing that with sort of common sense.
Yeah, that's good advice. Is there anything that businesses that you've been working with wish they had have done like months ago that would have set them in better stead for now? I know hindsight's a great thing, but it's quite an interesting because it's so different like to how people have been working. Anything sort of around communications, technology, how they're generally sort of set up for business?
Yeah, I think the organisations that I see doing the best are the people that doing the work that I'm talking about now before. So they had built strong communication. They practice things around vulnerability, being able to be honest and transparent with their team at the beginning, or even far before that as part of their practices, how leaders communicate. Like in terms of our mindset, when we find something challenging, we especially in Western societies, want to be seen as very rational, very sort of clear in terms of our thinking. We don't want to be led by emotions, but really that's a fallacy, and it's not how our brains work. We are emotional beings, and when we fail to acknowledge our emotions and our feelings, then they're leaving us without our knowledge. So organizations and leaders that can engage effectively using emotional intelligence and those parts with their teams and their team meetings, where they're having, they have conflict, but it's healthy conflict. If you're not having challenge in your organisation, you're not inviting diverse opinions in, you've got sort of groupthink following the leader, then those are the people that will find themselves in difficulties, especially in times of complexity that we face now, because COVID is complex. There's going to be things happening out in the world for your client, for a variety of different stakeholders that you can't grab hold of. So if you've not got a broad breadth of opinion and you're not looking and testing in different areas, you're going to seek certainties, seek assumptions and seek stories that prove you're right. And you won't be, because it's too complex. So the people that invite different perspectives, take a longer term point of view, are looking more at the horizon than sort of the short termism. This is, this quarter, this year, are the ones that are responding better by their working practices, by the way that they are engaging, and by the way that their people are able to come in and challenge and see what the assumptions are. I think mindset is going to be huge to get through this, because the way that we work will change fundamentally. People are learning that they can work in so many different ways. People are learning that we can engage differently. We don't need to travel in the ways that we used to think we did. So it will shift our market and our clients and the way that we work in the future. And so for me, like, I'm looking at, actually, I'm doing a lot of work virtually, working with clients that had days programs and now taking those into virtual platforms, and we're having to redesign and think about how they work in that way. But it's not a case of not doing stuff, and actually really a case of using this time to create and think of new value propositions that will enable you to be ready for the market and work in ways that enable you to test and capitalize on what works well, and remove yourself from areas which are going to close down.
Wow, it shows how complex this situation is, I guess. And you talk a lot about, obviously, how people are working and mindset and the challenges around that, which sounds really complex. And it sounds like you've got some quite complex clients that you're probably dealing with in terms of how they're set up. I guess you touched on a little bit about looking at the value-based proposition now. Are you finding that lots of companies are now deep in sort of looking at their services and looking at their products, and not you, because you talked a lot about people's, how they're working and sort of the communication side, but you did touch on the value-based proposition. Are companies literally changing the services that they're taking to market? Have you experienced that?
I think they're starting to think about it. I don't think they're there yet. I think it would probably be too early to be there yet. But you could say that we've never had such unprecedented change. We have had it, not so universally, but we have had change like this. How the internet coming in has changed the way the businesses operate, and some organisations flourished and others failed. Organisations such as Kodak didn't buy into digital photography at an early enough because they were successful, and they were the organisations that failed. Uber is another classic example that's come in and completely disrupted the market. Yeah. Now, the ones that will have the best chance of flourishing, and there's no guarantees, will be the ones that will not be hugely attached to what's happening now, but thinking about the future and speculating and almost testing things. So in complexity, we talk about safe to fail experiments. So because cause and effect is not clear, what you need to do is test things. If they work, you drive more resources into them. But if they don't work, you're not attached to them. you're knowing it's a test, you walk away and you try something else. And a lot of organisations are going to have to be, having many conversations now with their clients about what they're noticing, what their needs are. So although we can't get together face to face or in different networking situations as we would have traditionally, as a leader, you should be like at the top looking out about what's happening and empowering the people within your teams to do some of the stuff that needs to happen there, because it's going to be what you see and understand and feedback in that will help generate the change that your organisation needs to make, and the practices you adopt to do that.
100%. Do you no, it's a dreadful situation at the moment. Obviously, we every night in the news, you've seen, the count go up, and it's awful. I think mentally it's challenging for many people, sort of just seeing this and how they feel. So they've got to get up and go to work again in the morning, and it's challenging. It really is. Do you think there's any good that might come out of this in the long term?
It is really challenging. So like one client I was coaching last week saying, I've heard about this relational stuff before. I never really did it. I was so task focused. I just wanted to get something done. But now I find myself checking in with my team about how they are and what's going on for them and what's happening in their wider life. And actually, I can really see the benefits. I want to keep that going forward when we go back to more of a business as usual approach, whatever that will be in the future. So I think like what we're seeing in terms of society changes, that this is shifting us developmentally as people. We developmentally shift under pressure, and actually it's almost like a perfect pressure storm, because universally we're all under pressure and we're going to come out looking differently. And I think we've seen it for the last few years, with Greta Thunberg and the likes of climate change, this need to work differently, to understand things differently, to look at, 4Ps in terms of like different elements of profit, as well as, just what we're giving to our shareholders or those sorts of things. And I think that this is showing people that we can actually change. It almost felt too difficult to make those changes before, but we've been forced to make them very, very quickly. And we've done it effectively, and we've built connection, and we've built communication, and we've built understanding of people. We've built empathy, because we're all in it together. We find it very easy to be empathetic when people look like us or are like us. This is why we see certain types in organisations. But actually now we have a joint empathy because we're all in this together. And that connection has the possibility to sustain. And in a way, if this period lasts for a certain length of time, it will help us embed it. If it ends tomorrow, it'll be much easier for us to go back to the old ways. And I think that there are sad consequences to the planet, to us as society, because we've become increasingly more fractured, if we don't use this as an opportunity to create benefit for ourselves and future generations.
Yeah, that's good words. So I guess last question for you: what top tips would you say to business leaders? What have they got to do now in terms of, if you can say two things, what would that advice be?
Okay, I'll struggle with this, so I'll just tell you what I think. I think you really need to notice what's going on for yourself. So actually just tune into what you're feeling, what your anxieties are, because they will be driving you if you're not naming them. So be avert with those in terms of actually exploring what they are with yourself. Ask a trusted friend or associate to see what they're noticing and to ask you some questions, because it's easier to sometimes to talk these things out, and spend that bit of time on reflection, because we don't do it enough, especially in times of sort of threat where we go into fight, flight and freeze. We're not thinking. So we want to be bringing in our prefrontal cortex, and you've got to be communicating clearly and honestly and transparently, and really, really invite the points of view of other people in your business. Be engaging with your clients, be open, tell people how you're feeling, because as a leader, no one's going to tell you how they're feeling if you're not going to do it first. And just as I was saying, just watch those micro actions that you're doing, and communicate. And your teams need to feel like they belong. we are as a basic human need. We need to see people's faces. So make sure you've got your video on, make sure you're having opportunity to connect informally as you would in the office, like the famous water cooler moments, and be really clear and honest about what's happening. John Lewis had a great case study in 2008. They went through their first ever redundancy scenario, and they came out of that period with higher trust than when they went into it. And it's not many organisations that can go through that, and they did that through excellent communication, honesty and transparency. So, and you can only do that if you know how you're feeling. So, you know, work with somebody or, you know, a trusted person to help you do that, and then think about how do you bring your team together to start thinking about the future before the future starts happening to you, so you can be ahead of the curve, because many organisations will still be in sort of the clear up, but you need to come out fighting.
Gemma, thank you very much. I thought the views and your thoughts around the topic were fantastic, and I think many business leaders out there will do well to take your advice and hopefully put it into practice, and we'll come out of this in a better place than when we went in. So much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.